Pomerantsev's Nothing is True and Everything is Possible, The Surreal Heart of the New Russia, 2014, is a powerful exploration of contemporary Russia through the lens of media, propaganda, and personal narratives. Drawing on his own experiences as a television producer in Moscow during the early 2000s, Pomerantsev presents a vivid, disorienting portrait of a society where the boundaries between truth and fiction have collapsed, where the media doesn't just distort reality, it actively manufactures it. The title itself encapsulates the central theme. In Putin's Russia, where ideology has been replaced by spectacle, truth is malleable, and reality can be reshaped at will. A postmodern dystopia. Pomerantsev's Russia is a postmodern state where nothing is true, because the state controls the narratives, and everything is possible because those in power can fabricate any version of reality they wish. In this system, ideology has been replaced by performance. The Kremlin no longer relies on communist doctrine or democratic promises. Instead, it produces emotional spectacles, TV shows, and pseudo-political theater to keep the populace engaged and disoriented. The book opens with Pomerantsev's arrival in Moscow in the early 2000s. Born in the Soviet Union but raised in the UK, he returns to the land of his birth, expecting to find a post-Soviet society struggling toward Western-style modernization. Instead, he encounters a bizarre, theatrical nation powered by image management, manipulation, and a cynical elite who use post-Soviet chaos to their advantage. The role of media. One of the central themes of Nothing is True and Everything is Possible is the weaponization of media. Pomerantsev's work as a producer for Russian reality TV gives him a unique perspective on how entertainment and propaganda are intertwined. Russian television, controlled directly or indirectly by the Kremlin, becomes a tool not just of persuasion but of domination. The media does not simply lie, it saturates the public sphere with conflicting versions of reality, making it nearly impossible for citizens to distinguish truth from fiction. A striking example is the state's ability to shape news coverage to support shifting political objectives. In one instance, a person who was once hailed as a nationalist hero is later vilified on state television when he becomes inconvenient. These reversals are presented not as contradictions, but as new episodes in an ongoing narrative designed for television audiences. This constant reinvention destabilizes any coherent sense of reality. Pomerantsev refers to this media strategy as the Kremlin's reality show, where not only politics, but truth itself is staged. Television becomes the primary vehicle through which the state constructs national identity, fear, and loyalty. The boundaries between news, propaganda, and fiction dissolve entirely. The cult of personality and spectacle. Another central theme in Pomerantsev's account is the rise of spectacle and personality cults as substitutes for genuine governance. Vladimir Putin himself functions as both president and brand, his image carefully curated through staged events, athletic photo ops, and stoic television addresses. He appears less as a traditional authoritarian ruler and more like a character in a serialized drama. But Putin is not the only one who benefits from the spectacle. Pomerantsev introduces readers to a range of surreal characters, gangster-turned-motivational speakers, oligarchs who reinvent themselves as philanthropists, and glamorous women who seek marriage through reality shows or become symbols of state power. In one memorable story, he follows a group of Putin's angels, young women who perform patriotic dances in skimpy clothing and use their beauty as a tool for political influence. These characters embody the book's title. They exist in a world where the unreal becomes normal, where identity and morality are fluid and transactional. Disillusionment and the absence of ideals. The pervasive cynicism that Pomerantsev describes is not limited to the political elite. It permeates Russian society at large. There is a widespread belief that all systems are rigged, that justice is an illusion, and that only personal survival and advancement matter. This worldview is a legacy of both the Soviet era and the economic chaos of the 1990s, which left many Russians skeptical of both Western democracy and Marxist ideology. In this vacuum, ideology is replaced by pragmatism and opportunism. Pomerantsev describes how even opposition movements and NGOs often fall into the trap of performative resistance, more concerned with appearances and funding than meaningful change. At every level of society, from the corridors of power to the disenfranchised youth, there is a sense that there is no stable ground, no guiding principle other than adaptability and showmanship. This erosion of ideals leads to a kind of existential disorientation. Pomerantsev meets young people who long for a sense of purpose but find only nihilism and spectacle. Some join cult-like self-help movements, while others are drawn to violent nationalism or extremist ideologies. All are looking for something real in a world that seems increasingly artificial. Hybrid warfare and information chaos. As the book progresses, Pomerantsev draws a line between domestic media manipulation and Russia's external geopolitical strategies. The same techniques used to confuse and control Russian citizens are exported abroad in the form of hybrid warfare, an amalgam of disinformation, cyber attacks, and proxy conflicts. Ukraine's Maidan Revolution and the annexation of Crimea serve as case studies in this new kind of warfare, where traditional military tactics are supplemented by media campaigns and internet propaganda designed to disorient international audiences. This is part of a broader strategy, sometimes described as non-linear war, where the goal is not to win hearts and minds, but to undermine the very possibility of consensus. In this new paradigm, truth becomes just another weapon, and trust in institutions erodes globally. Pomerantsev's insights here were especially prescient, foreshadowing the rise of information warfare that would later be seen in Western democracies during events like Brexit and the 2016 US presidential election. Tash, literary style and structure. Pomerantsev's prose is lyrical, vivid, and often surreal, reflecting the dreamlike unreality of the world he describes. The book is structured as a series of loosely connected vignettes rather than a linear narrative. This fragmented structure mirrors the thematic content. Just as Russian reality is fractured and inconsistent, so is the book's form. It reads more like a collection of short stories than a traditional political analysis, blending journalism, memoir, and cultural critique. The literary style is both a strength and a challenge. Readers looking for a comprehensive political treatise may be frustrated by the lack of traditional argumentation or policy analysis. However, those open to a more impressionistic, immersive approach will find the book richly rewarding. Pomerantsev doesn't just tell us what's wrong with Russia, he makes us feel it. Conclusion. A Mirror to the World, while nothing is true and everything is possible, is ostensibly about Russia. Its implications are global. In an era of deepfake videos, algorithm-driven echo chambers, and populist leaders who blur the line between fiction and policy, Pomerantsev's account feels increasingly relevant. His portrayal of a society where performance has replaced truth serves as a cautionary tale for all democracies struggling with the rise of disinformation and political spectacle. At its core, the book is not just about media, politics, or Russia. It's about the human need for authenticity in a world where everything feels fake. Pomerantsev challenges us to consider what it means to live ethically in a culture where truth is devalued and manipulated. His message is clear. When nothing is true and everything is possible, the first casualty is trust. And without trust, freedom itself becomes an illusion.